Hi, I'm Julie Grant, one of the hosts of Trump on Earth. Before we start today's show, we want to tell you about a new podcast you might like. It's called Climate 2020, and it makes climate change the top issue of the presidential election. Listen as researchers, activists, and journalists like MSNBC's Chris Hayes explain where your favorite candidate stands on climate and which proposals make the most sense. You'll hear thought-provoking conversations about how we can solve our world's greatest crisis. You can subscribe at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and learn more at climate2020podcast.com. Now here's Trump on Earth. 3 seconds. That's how long a meat inspector would have to inspect each 250-pound hog carcass as it moves down the slaughterhouse line under a new Trump administration rule. Each of those dings you're hearing, it's another pig coming down the line. Inspectors are looking for things like fecal matter, toenails, hair, tumors, open sores, anything that could get into the food supply as the hog is cut up and put into containers for market. But is 3 seconds enough?
What we're talking about here are some extremely massive facilities.
Tom Philpott covers food and agriculture for Mother Jones magazine, and he's our guest today on Trump on Earth.
So you're talking about this incredibly fast line speed, and picture the hog being stunned and then this carcass going down the line, and then workers immediately setting to cut it up, eviscerate it, pull the guts out, and start breaking it down. So these are, facilities that are full of lots and lots of blood and guts and enormous animals being slaughtered.
Last month, the USDA quietly issued a new rule, changing meat inspection standards for pork. Not only would the new rule mean slaughterhouses could run their processing lines as fast as they want, it would also change who does the inspecting, giving the pork producers themselves a bigger role in the process. The changes represent the first updates to hog slaughterhouse inspection procedures in over 50 years. Proponents say it will bring much-needed modernization and innovation to the industry. Critics say it's a dangerous move toward privatization and decreased food safety. The faster speeds have already been piloted in 5 facilities. A few years ago, a secret video was filmed inside one of them, a slaughterhouse in Minnesota that supplies Hormel.
Other supervisors were caught cheering as a pig was improperly stunned and drenching paper towels in pig's blood to throw at other workers.
The video was recorded by the animal rights organization Compassion Over Killing. It shows pigs with open wounds being sent down the slaughter line. Some are covered in feces, and some are still alive.
This pig, arching her back and lifting her head, is attempting to right herself, which is a sign she may be conscious.
That one was definitely alive.
If you didn't quite catch that, it's a worker saying, quote, "That one was definitely still alive." The faster speeds mean that it's hard for workers to keep up, and some say that could jeopardize food safety and force workers to take shortcuts that could lead to more suffering for the animals. Tom Philpott from Mother Jones says the changes amount to surrendering the public's eye on the slaughterhouse floor to industry at some very key steps in the process.
You've got this situation where you've got this very active and busy kill line. And so in the old system, you had USDA inspectors stationed at several points from the actual killing of the animal to the meat going out ready to be packaged. And so you had, 6 or 7 inspectors set up all along the process, visually inspecting, poking, sniffing, looking for diseased carcasses, situations where the evisceration didn't go very smoothly and you've got feces sitting on the carcass, things like that. So you had USDA inspectors pulling carcasses off the line in situations like that. And what the new system does is it takes 2 of the inspectors out of the middle of the process and replaces them with company inspectors. So, employees of the company who are supposed to do this. And the rationale is that instead of all this visual and sort of sniff test that goes on before by the USDA, a certain number of the carcasses are pulled off the line for sort of random testing at points that are supposed to be established. Like, these are the points of the process where the biggest risk is. So we're going to pull carcasses off there, randomly test them, and if there are if no problems are seen, then we'll just let it continue. And so there's still a USDA inspector at the front of the process. There's still a USDA inspector at the end of the process, but the middle ones have been taken off and replaced with company employees.
So can I ask, just to interject, who has been pushing for this? Is this coming from USDA or is this from the companies?
Well, I think that's a really good question, and I think it's a little bit of both. Part of it is this sort of appetite for deregulation that has been in our government for a long time, let's say since the Reagan era, and I think the Democrats kind of acceded to it. And so part of it is sort of technocratic government, let's deregulate, let's have fewer inspectors, let's lower the budget for inspection by letting the industry take it over. But then the other part of it comes directly from the industry. And the reason why the industry has been extremely bullish on this since it started was that part of the deal is that when you remove these inspectors, these government inspectors, the idea is that, well, if we're not doing as much visual inspection, then we can speed the line up. So, earlier I said that we had about, the average is about 980 carcasses per hour. And there was a government regulation that kept it at that speed. So you couldn't go above that speed. And what the new regulation says is, hey, look, as long as you can pass all these random tests that we're doing, you can go as fast as you want. And so there's been 5 plants doing a pilot process for about 15 years. So 5 gigantic pork facilities in the United States have been working under a pilot program. And the average speed in those pilot programs is about 1,100 hogs per minute. And one of them went as fast as 1,300 hogs per minute. So a significant ramping up of the line speed. And for the industry, that is very, very desirable, because the more hogs you can send down the line as fast as possible, the lower your costs are. It goes to your bottom line. And so the industry has been very, very, very enthusiastic about it. But administrations, basically from Clinton to Obama, have all been very enthusiastic about it. But the USDA, who's in charge of these policies, doesn't look at worker safety. That's a whole different federal agency. It's OSHA.
Now, what was that, just to say, what was the concern and what is the concern for worker safety here?
Well, the concern for worker safety is that at current speeds, the rates of injury is massively higher than the national average. You get repetitive motion injuries. You got people basically attacking dead animals with knives at high speeds. And so there is cutting. People get cuts. And so the idea is that already at current line speeds, the job is too dangerous. We're basically sacrificing people's health for our meat. And there is no rationale for speeding them up. They're already way over maximum.
While you're on that point, and then we can keep going, but just, is there any comparable to workers on these kinds of lines compared with other factory lines, a poultry line or a hog production line compared with, someone working at Amazon? Or do you know what I'm saying? Like someone
Yeah, so there is some data on that that I have in a recent piece. And so, this is the hog rules are not, have not gone into effect yet. They're going to go into effect in the next 6 weeks. So these numbers are based on the old system for hog workers, and also mostly for poultry workers too. But meatpacking as a whole, they incur injury and illness at 2.5 times the national average. And repetitive motion injuries like carpal tunnel happen at a rate of 7 times as high as other private industries. And basically, if you talk to worker safety advocates, they will tell you that these are all undercounted, that the data that we have for them is not very good, and if we had better data, it would show even higher injury rates. So this is a very dangerous job that they're making more dangerous.
Right. Now, you were talking about a previous article, and I imagine you've written quite a few, but I saw one that said about a pilot project 6 years ago. What happened there is that what you talked about already with pork producers trying self-inspections? I think it was in 2013.
Yeah, so this pilot project, so what the Trump administration just did was that they generalized practices that have been going on at these 5 pilot projects for a long time. And so we do have a lot of data on them. And the data that we're getting is not very encouraging. In 2013, the USDA was very enthusiastically trying to push through the final rule for hogs as well. And they were saying, hey, look, we've got this data from these 5 plants, and the data look great. It looks like food safety is, not going to be an issue with this new system. And the USDA's Office of Inspector General issued a report saying, wait up, this is not true at all. Basically that the USDA had not provided very good oversight of these 5 facilities. The OIG report looked at the plants with the most food safety and animal welfare violations between 2008 and 2011, and they ranked them by, the sort of top 10. And 3 of the top 10 were among these 5 facilities. In other words, 60% of the facilities in the program land in the top 10 of all hog plants, and there are hundreds of hog plants. In fact, there are 616 hog plants, and 3 of the 5 in the program ended up in this top 10 of, basically food safety violations like, meat getting through the facility with, active damage like bruises and pus, meat getting through the process with E. coli and other contaminants. And these facilities also had high rates of citations for animal welfare violations. And so this program that was supposed to show that the new system would improve food safety and not damage animal welfare did anything but. And then, in 2015, there a bunch of whistleblowers came forward, government inspectors who were still part of the process in these pilot facilities. They weren't part of the ones that were laid off. They were still involved in the process. And they were seeing, kind of what you'd expect, where these companies were putting employees that weren't trained properly, they didn't know what they were doing in these crucial positions of visually inspecting the carcasses as they go by. Like, it takes a lot of training to be a USDA inspector, and the private sector replacement inspectors were not very trained at all. They were letting through carcasses with fecal contamination. The Government Accountability Project put up a bunch of affidavits by these inspectors complaining bitterly about the conditions they were seeing.
On numerous occasions, I witnessed them, company inspectors, fail to spot abscesses, lesions, fecal matter, and other defects that would render an animal unsafe or unwholesome. Anonymous Inspector Affidavit Number 1.
It's not whether or not people are going to eat shit. They are. It's just how much. Anonymous Inspector Affidavit Number 1.
What you're hearing are the words from those inspectors' affidavits being read by other people, voice actors, to protect their identities.
It seems like the USDA is doing all it can to make sure the HIMP program succeeds in this plan, even if it means betraying customers by hiding the truth about their food. Anonymous Inspector Affidavit Number 3.
Other contamination, such as hair, toenails, cystic kidneys, and bladder stems, has increased under the pilot program. Most of the time, they are running so fast it is impossible to see anything on the carcass. Anonymous Inspector Affidavit Number 2.
It's no longer meaningful for consumers to see that mark indicating that their product has been USDA inspected. Anonymous Inspector Affidavit Number 3.
I hope that others will speak out to prevent the program from expanding nationwide.
All of the affidavits can be read in full on our website. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Nate Cubis.
And I'm Reggie Cubis.
We're the sons of Trump on Earth producer Andy Cubis.
She works behind the scenes.
We think you should support this podcast on how do you say this word? Patreon. Because the environment matters for us kids.
Go to patreon.com/TrumpOnEarth to learn more.
You can pledge as little as $1 a month.
We can even afford that with our measly allowance, right, Nate?
Right. Thank you.
Welcome back to Trump on Earth. I'm Julie Grant. We're talking with Tom Philpott, who covers food and agriculture for Mother Jones magazine. Before the break, he was telling us about a USDA pilot program that allowed 5 hog slaughterhouses to speed up their production lines. The Trump administration is now opening up that program, allowing all of the nation's hog slaughter facilities to adopt it. Were the findings here taken into account to improve what's going to become the rules?
It certainly isn't clear that there are any more procedures in place that would ensure that, let's say, the plant employees taking these inspection roles are properly trained. What we have seen at USDA before Trump got there is really the sort of culture of lax oversight of these facilities and especially of the ones in the pilot. And it, I would say it would take a great leap of the imagination to think that the Sonny Perdue USDA, the Trump USDA, would have made things any better. So, I think the answer is that, if that is true, if this data and feedback had been incorporated into the system, it certainly isn't evident. We have no evidence of it. And in fact, I think what this probably, the message for the industry would conceivably be, well, we did these pilot projects, they didn't work out very well, but we still get to take the system take this new system to all the plants anyway. I guess we can do whatever we want. There's not much oversight. That's the basic takeaway I think that the industry's gotten. Now, obviously they have an interest. If you're a giant hog company, you have an interest in not causing a big outbreak because
right, of course,
yeah, because it's will be traced back to your plant. At the same time, we do keep getting these outbreaks of things like salmonella and E. coli. So they're happening. And whether the new system's going to, increase that is anyone's guess. But, taking the old system and weakening it is probably not a great thing.
I just want to ask this while we're talking about sort of the history of all this. This is moving forward under President Trump's USDA, but since it has been so long in coming, would you still consider this a Trump legacy, or is this something that was going to happen most likely no matter who no matter who's in charge?
That's a really good question. And I look at a lot of regulatory changes under that lens. Is this specifically a Trump thing, or is this sort of the way the political system would have played out under, let's say, a President Hillary Clinton or a President Mitt Romney? Is sort of a more normal candidate, more normal president. And I think that it's a little bit of both. I think that under a President Clinton, after the outrage over worker safety for the poultry under her predecessor, President Obama, I'm guessing she would have proceeded with this because the USDA has wanted to do this for a very long time. But I'm guessing that she would not have lifted the line speed maximum. So it is a little bit of both. It's, part of it is just sort of the culture of deregulation that's been upon us for a while that President Trump is just taking and running with as fast as he can. And part of it is, the specific Trumpian hostility to anything that might inconvenience industry, that might improve or, not actively step on the safety of workers.
Yeah. And I'm just as you're talking, it's sort of clarifying in my mind, you are actually talking about two different things, removing USDA inspectors from the middle of the hog processing process, and then also increasing the line speed so the hogs are moving more quickly through the system. So I know you said that already, but somehow as you're talking, it's becoming more clear that there are two different things changing here.
Yeah, and they are kind of related because if you're the industry, there's a carrot and a stick here. So if you're the industry, you're now having to pay for a couple of employees to take the place of these inspectors. So you've got this economic burden. That's the stick. The carrot is, hey, you get to speed up the line. And so what they found for poultry was that because of the line speed, the sort of deregulation of line speeds, that would have saved the industry about $300 million a year. I have not seen a similar number for pork, but there is definitely significant savings. And so when Obama did what he did with poultry, the new system did not spread like wildfire because the plants themselves have the option. They can keep the old inspection system or adopt a new one. And the new inspection system did not spread like wildfire through the poultry industry. What the poultry industry did was they, by and large, kept the old system, but are actively applying for waivers to speed up their lines. And when they get the waiver, then they move over to the new system. And so for hogs, if they had done this thing of semi-privatizing inspection but not changing line speed, the industry probably would, it would be a similar situation where the industry is now trying to get waivers because it is not worth it to them to adopt a new system unless they can do the speed up. So they're related, but they are different.
And just kind of to finish up, and to me as a consumer, do you think people who eat pork should be worried as we move into this new rule, this new system or these new rules? Should people be worried about the food they're eating? I mean, I just did a quick search online and saw in the past few days the USDA found a high health risk with pork products near Indianapolis, a recall of more than 700 pounds of pork products that might have been contaminated with listeria, and those were shipped throughout the state of Indiana. So I guess, would you expect more problems like this? Do you think consumers might wind up being, should be worried?
I think that consumers should be worried about the pork that they're getting under the current system and treat it with great care. I think that there is a high likelihood that a piece of meat that you bring home from the supermarket processed by one of these companies is going to have some pathogens on it, maybe antibiotic-resistant pathogens, and it should be treated with great care. I think that with this new system and speeding up the line and taking USDA inspectors off the line, I would say yes. I would say that the concern would be even greater. So this has been sold by the USDA, going back to Clinton, very much through Obama, as an improvement in food safety. There is no evidence that it improves food safety, and there is pretty strong evidence that it decreases food safety from a pretty bad base. So, basically, when you bring meat home from the supermarket, treat it like biohazard. Wash your hands, wash every surface it touches. Don't let other food touch it that you're going to consume raw. That advice, it might sound like I'm some, conspiracy theorist, paranoiac, but that advice is from the USDA already. As we're already basically taught to treat our meat like biohazard, and I would say even more so now with this new inspection system.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tom, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Trump on Earth. If you like our show, please consider supporting us through Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/TrumpOnEarth. You can find us online at TrumpOnEarth.org and anywhere you get your podcasts. Write us a review and tell your friends. The podcast is supported by the Robert F. Schuman Foundation. Our producer and digital editor is Andy Cubis. Kathy Nauer is the executive producer. I'm Julie Grant.